We conducted a major piece of research. We had it commissioned, and we released a couple of weeks ago the first part of that research, which was around money and mental health. Really, really happy and pleased to see the money conversation being brought into the mental health conversation. The fact that it hasn't been there all along has been a bit distressing, I think, for us. But it's really good to see that conversation starting. So we are now in part 2. So bit of housekeeping. If a fire alarm goes off in your house, please get out. Or for those of you back on campus, please get out. We don't have anything scheduled ourselves. Please keep yourselves on mute, but please do make full use of the chat function. Really keen to be able to answer any questions and get into any conversations that people would like to. This is absolutely not a sales exercise at all. The point from our point of view is to really just share with you some of our findings. So there'll be none of that. So let's kick off. So student thoughts on financial support from universities and colleges is the second part of what we wanted to chat about. So once we've kind of established that students are having a bit of a time at the moment with COVID, universities have been unbelievable in their support of students. I don't think that they're getting nearly enough recognition for the incredible and unwavering work that's been done. And what we wanted to look at is really, what do students think about the financial support, and maybe raise some opportunities perhaps to be able to support them better, or to address some of the issues that have come up. We conducted this survey in late January, so this is very much COVID. This is very much kind of within the COVID prism. So if anybody that doesn't know, Blackbullion's a fintech company for education. We are championing financial well-being for students, for everyone, but specifically for students. We're working increasingly with universities across the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. And if anyone wants to find out more, obviously, give us a shout. So the research was conducted online. We worked with Censuswise, who conducted it independently of us, and there was 1,000 students that participated. The first part, as I said, was about money worries and how the uncertainty was impacting students, and in particular their mental health. And if you haven't read the report, I would urge you to flick through it. There are some very interesting and some quite disturbing findings around mental health, optimism, anxiety, attainment, and the like. Part 2 is really looking at the practical issues around financial support, what students are looking for, when they're looking for it, and perhaps trying to identify some quick win opportunities for institutions. We all know that this is a period of very fast digital transformation. A lot of campuses have been throwing a lot of resource, human capacity into looking at how to digitize quickly. But we also know that there's a lot of organizations out there who are promising the moon and can solve all of your problems and can do everything very quickly, and it'll cost nothing and it'll require no effort on your part. We only tackle one issue, but we tackle it very, very well. And so we're just looking at how to help institutions along those lines. So there are 5 key questions we really want to get into. What are students' expectations from financial support? Where are students currently going? When are they getting the support that they're getting? What's stopping them from coming to student services? And how might technology be able to support this desire to provide a world-class experience? So what are students' expectations for financial support? Quite simply, students believe, as do we, as do all of you, that a student who can't afford to stay on campus can't succeed on campus. This is not anything that we couldn't guess ourselves, but it was quite striking from students with some of the comments. We haven't posted all the student feedback in the presentation, but the report that you guys will get a sneak peek with contains all of those kind of details. So this is the breakdown of students. For the overwhelming majority of students, the financial support that they receive or the financial support that they don't receive massively impacts, they believe, on their ability to complete the degree. So you can see 62% of students receive financial help and don't think that they'd be able to do it. They don't think that they'd be able to cope without, and 8% don't receive financial support and believe that that is going to impact on their degree. So the idea that money has a huge impact on success and on the student experience, I don't think is anything mind-blowing. This is quite intuitive, but it does show that the numbers are high. We need to be addressing the gaps between what people have and what people think that they need in order to help them to have not just a great experience on campus, but also achieve their ultimate objective, which is to graduate with a good degree in order to take the next steps in their life journey. We were quite surprised by this number, although glad to see it. Only 3% of students don't believe that it's universities' roles to provide financial information and guidance to students, i.e. 97% believe that this is an important element of the support from universities. There's probably a range of reasons for this. We believe it's partly because the money conversation is starting to bubble to the top. COVID hasn't just been a health crisis, or isn't and remains a health crisis. The financial crisis has been underpinning it, and that's really what's going to start to show going forward. Young people, not just students, young people across the board are worried about what their financial futures look like. We all know that this generation of young people is at a lower point of financial success than previous generations at the same age. They are going to earn less, own less, and potentially have less money right throughout their lives. This is the first generation that is worse off than their parents. So, and of course that's on average. But the fact that they want to learn, get advice and get guidance younger and at university, in a sense is gratifying, because it means that they recognize that there is an issue. On the other hand, of course, it means that there is just that extra level of responsibility for universities should they choose to engage in this particular support. Of course, that's why we do what we do, and we hope that we're helping with that. But as I said right at the beginning, while people were coming into the room, we're getting like 300 students a week who want to talk about credit scoring and who want to understand mortgages. And so there is this desire out there, which wasn't there even a few years ago. So in a sense, a sign of things to come. I'm not going to read every single one of these, and again, it's all in the report, but there are different types of information and different methods of delivery that students believe universities should engage with. The interesting splits, as we have found right throughout this research, between men and women, which is really interesting. And if we had a lot of time, we could really dig into that. But some fascinating differences. But what a lot of students kind of really hone in on is this idea that universities can and should provide information that students can access, that is available to them kind of throughout their university journey, and that it should be signposted so that they can engage with it in their own time and at their own pace. Obviously, that's interesting. It's not massively surprising, given that technology has made the world, for these young people and for most of us on the call, a place where you can instantly get what you're looking for when you're looking for, that is tailored and personalized directly to you. So these numbers and these attitudes very much reflecting a generational shift in how we expect to get the information that we need. I got a check yesterday, which is still on my desk, and I'm like, what on earth am I going to do with a check? And I think that this is just the world that we're in. Is the world looks different because of technology, and there's no reason why we would expect that to end at the front door to campus. So again, you can have a look at all of these details inside the report, but some very interesting suggestions, still suggesting things like drop-ins and workshops. So they haven't disappeared, but they are much lower down in the requests now. And given that I know some of you very, very well, and you guys have been running courses and have been running workshops for a while, and often the complaint is, well, we go to all this effort to create it, and then students don't actually show up. So how can we augment the in real life advice with guidance which students can access at any time? So where are students going for their financial guidance and advice? Well, it won't surprise you that they're going exactly where you think that they'd be going, which is to parents first, parents and guardians first, and friends second. University support services coming in at a very healthy third above kind of social media. And third-party organizations like Citizens Advice, but parents and guardians, the overwhelming first point of call. On the one hand, that's great. It means the conversations are being had. On the other hand, the fact that 62% of students are turning to parents and guardians also poses some challenges, because actually we have got a crisis of adult financial literacy in this country. There are first in family students and students whose parents have not gone to university or college before, who wouldn't necessarily know the answers, who wouldn't necessarily understand how student debt works. And then you've got the overarching financial literacy issues where many adults in this country are actually not financially literate themselves. And so it is a little bit of people who don't know asking people who also don't know. So when there is great support on campus, really what we want to do is be encouraging young people to go where there is the knowledge, not just to parents. Parental support can be great, but it tends to also be quite divided based on things like socioeconomics, on experience, on advantage versus disadvantage. The students who could most benefit from independent advice are often the ones that are the least comfortable to ask for it. And that is, that is a universal problem around a range of issues. But just highlighting the fact that is a challenge here. So for students who aren't turning to student services, and based on the survey above here, you can see that it is an average of 33% of students who do ask student services. What's stopping students from turning to student services is actually quite a wide range of issues. So 33% would turn to student services, and that's absolutely fantastic. 24% wouldn't turn to student services because they worry about being judged. And this is interesting because it reflects our overall complicated relationship with money. The fact that not having money is shameful, and I'm deliberately using air quotes, forgive me. The fact that it's shameful, the fact that it's embarrassing, the fact that we still have this kind of mystique around I'm the only person who doesn't understand, which everybody on this call knows is simply not true. So the idea that almost a quarter of students are not asking for help because they're worried about how they will be perceived is something that we are really keen to be demystifying money exactly to, and destigmatizing money exactly to address this particular statistic. This is not a good reason to not ask for help. This is a deeply personal and emotional reason for not asking. But if we can destigmatize money and make people realize that actually almost everyone is in a similar boat, it'll make people more likely to put their hand up and ask for help. So we are very keen to address this. 27% wouldn't know where to go, which is, we suspect, more of a practical issue. Are services adequately signposted? Are the websites adequately signposting to student services? We obviously very regularly look at a variety of websites from all sorts of universities around the world, partners of Blackbullion and non-partners, and international universities as well. And not all websites are great. Sometimes it is very difficult to find what it is that you're looking for. And again, short attention spans, already not really wanting to do it. If a student can't very easily find what they're looking for, then they may be turned off before they even complete their journey. So 27% wouldn't know who to go to. And again, we've broken the full thing down, which you'll be able to see in the sneak peek report that you can get in the chat. There are all sorts of different reasons. Money is very complex, as we've all discussed before. There are students we know who don't turn for help because they feel like that will negatively impact their studies, because somehow they'll get a reputation for it. So there's all sorts of human issues, and this is why I, as many of you know, constantly bang on about the kind of holistic view of students. How can we address the whole student? Because what happens with money impacts mental health, which impacts on their studies, which impacts on attainment, which impacts on recruitment and retention. So how do we address all of these issues? And part of it is to be talking about money as if it is not the most scary thing in the world. So again, you can have a look at all of these numbers kind of at your own leisure in the report, but some very interesting standout numbers. So we wanted to dig a little bit into the actual application process for funding. There's obviously been a lot of money, not nearly enough, but a lot more than usual because of government funding throughout the process over the last couple of months. And we wanted to know how students were finding the actual application process, because anecdotally we were hearing very conflicting stories. And again, this is not an opportunity for us to talk about our products, but many of you know we have released a new application funding system. So we wanted to know kind of what was happening otherwise. And for on campuses that were not using our system, so for funding applications that didn't involve our systems at all, it was just under half found the application process somewhat difficult or very difficult to complete. Part of our research was finding that things like accessibility were not necessarily being taken into account with application processes. Not everything was compatible with screen readers. Students who were dyslexic were struggling. They weren't all able to be done on the phone in a convenient and easy way. So just under half were finding the application process somewhat or very difficult to complete. Just a couple of the standout kind of quotes. Again, we've put the majority of them into the report itself. We didn't just want to be kind of throwing quotes at you, but really it's this top one. Well, it's not just the top one, but the top one really kind of sums it up. It was difficult for them to find. It was difficult for them to understand how to fill it out. Difficult to know who to contact. And then again, this word shame on the left-hand side. Shameful to submit things. I'd rather rely on a food bank. And I would imagine, again, knowing many of you quite well, that's quite heartbreaking when there is support available and you know that it's not shameful and you know that you just want to support students, that a student would feel this way. So again, this is about humans and people have feelings and they have emotions. The question is, how can we destigmatize it? How can we make it easy? How can we make it feel simple for them? And it won't surprise you that we believe technology has a role to play, primarily because of this quote, which we were shocked by. This idea, and we tried it. We didn't actually take out the loan, but we went through the process for it. And it's about right. You really can access up to £500 in kind of 3.5 minutes on a payday loan website. So if you are able to do that in 2 or 3 minutes and there's no shame and there's no stigma attached and it's not personal, and the alternative is that it can take a month or more to get money from a hardship fund, even though there is no interest, even though it's a grant, that's worrying, because this is actually what students are seeing as the alternative, and that is concerning to us. And we do believe that technology can help. We have got a range of other quotes inside the report, so please feel free. So these are kind of the 3 headline ways in which we think that technology can be supporting the process. Well, that students believe that technology can support the process. So 2/3 of students want to be able to see the status of their applications. The idea that you send in a bunch of paperwork to a hello at kind of email address was a bit jarring for students. Like, where am I at? Who's got my details? The same number of people want to be able to do it quite quickly. And then almost the same number of people want to be able to do the whole thing online. Now, of course, during COVID, they haven't really had a choice because going onto campus has been near on impossible. But all 3 of these elements are actually fairly easy and fairly straightforward. A lot of campuses are already doing at least one, if not all of these. So it is a real source of alignment between campuses and students, but some very simple, very clear ways that they believe that the applications can be made easier. And then, as you can see, there is a portion of students as well who just want an easy and straightforward process. The final kind of stat that we were interested in was that almost half of students want to receive an immediate payment. We were interested to see that sometimes pay can take a week to 2 weeks to land in students' accounts. In response to that research that we did prior to this with our partners and with students, we are going to be introducing instant payments into our application system in the coming weeks. So it really will be immediate. It'll be in students' bank accounts within a matter of moments. Reflecting very much, again, the way that students use their money. If you think that, if I went out and bought a couple of coffees and one of them was Rachel's and she used her Starling card to pay me back, I could get the money back like this. And that's very much the expectation of a generation. And that's very much what we are trying to address. And so in conclusion, really, we are starting to see universities move from kind of dealing with the crisis into recovery. Everyone is trying to work out what changes that we have made during COVID are actually permanent changes and should be permanent changes and represent an improvement, and which ones should be kind of left in the dark annals of COVID and left behind in our lockdown system. We believe at Blackbullion, as I am sure many in the sector believe, that this is an ideal time to innovate on some of the processes that have been deprioritized because there's always been something more important. The student experience has always been key, but in the coming years, as we rethink what the future of work looks like, as we rethink what the future of education looks like, enhancing the student experience and really getting the experience right and satisfaction as high as possible from recruitment all the way to graduation is going to be absolutely key. And whether we like it or not, and whether it should be like this or not, financial support is an underpinning of a lot of those elements. And so, as always, we wanted to highlight some of the real opportunities, and hopefully some of that was stuff that you went, oh, we could do some of that. So you can get your copy of the report, obviously, and dig into it a little bit more. Feel free to share it with colleagues.